Hi friends, I'm Gio, and welcome to my channel. Today's adventure takes place on Lanai, Hawaii. Chapter 1. He stood at the end of the pier, maybe 50 feet from me, facing the Pacific. It was about 8 on a Sunday morning, the kind of skies that makes the folks in Oklahoma run for cover. Gray and silver clouds fought like MMA fighters, throwing each other around the ring. The air was heavy with salt and spray. A storm was coming. We were in Hawaii, Lanai Island, just outside Lanai City, facing south. For nearly 60 years, it was known as the Pineapple Island. Its owners then were the Dole Corporation. It was bought in 2012 by billionaire Larry Ellison. The man stood on a dock that belonged to the city behind me, Mandalay Bay. Not really a city, just a place where they had all the hotels. Lanai City had 3,300 people. Not a city by any regular standards, but it was still a city. Only the main roads from Lanai City to the airport and to Manele Harbor were paved. All others were gravel or dirt. Transportation to other islands was limited, with only an occasional ferry to Maui or a plane landing on the single runway airport. Lanai Island doesn't see a lot of traffic, mostly turboprops and private planes. I've been out here walking the beach for an hour or so, sand squishing around my shoes. The air smelled of salt and the chlorine from the hotel's pool. The man must have his earbuds in because he danced to a song only he heard, and then whipped up a set of air drumsticks and beat the air like a drummer in a metal band. Silhouetted against the sky, he wore a sleeveless vintage tee with the words, "Don't dream it, be it." A pair of ruby lips hovered just under it. Though cloudy, he wore sunglasses, the nice kind, Ray-Bans. He turned slightly, the white earbud hugged his ear. My first thought, I wish I was that free. The guy must be a tourist. My second thought, can you fall in love with barely a glance? I could go up and talk to him, but after the mess in Vegas, I didn't have the heart. Besides, what would I say? Hi, I'm Todd Parker. I'm 35, have 2 kids. Steve's 12, Stephanie's 10. My ex is named Vivian. She hates being called Viv. My kids hate me because my ex poisoned them against me. Was it a bad divorce? She took the house, the kids, the business I started, so everything. Why, you ask? I came out 18 months ago. She freaked out. Any reasonably cute guy would look at me and run away in terror. I have so much baggage I could fill the whole of a 747 and then need a second airplane. The alarm on my phone rang. 8 in the morning. Time to get Grandpa's pills ready. I walked back to the Jeep and drove to the bungalow. The old man had arthritis in his hands and couldn't tie or untie knots on his old boat, or open a beer, or get the child-friendly caps off his pill bottles. Grandpa once worked on the pineapple plantations when Dole owned Lanai. He still has all the tools he used back then. I drove his old Jeep Liberty back to the bungalow. The house must be 40 years old and is filled with that much crap. Chapter 2. Manele Harbor is about 7 miles from Lanai City and takes 20 minutes to drive, mostly because it isn't a straight line. 99% of the island's population lives in Lanai City, and perhaps 80% of that works in Manele Harbor. The harbor has the tourist hotels, namely the Four Seasons Resort Lanai, and all the tourist things like rental boats and scuba diving. Grandpa used to rent out his old boat, Dolphin, but age has caught up to him. He can take care of himself, barely, but his hands aren't what they once were. When I was a kid, he used to carve me things, a seagull in flight, including a stand, a boat that looked like his dolphin, but I had to have a blue one, that's my favorite color, and even a strange creature that used to be an almond. He gave me something that he carved for almost every birthday, until my dad moved to Vegas. Dad and Grandpa never got along, never learned why. Grandpa's place was a junk heap with birds of paradise planted in pots outside the front door. He had a patched corrugated steel roof. Some windows still had glass in them, and the place hadn't seen paint since the Bush administration. I'm not sure if Grandpa meant the first one or the second Bush, but with the old sinks, tons of rusty tin cans, barrel drums, and an old car rotting away, and something I think used to be a couch. Maybe think it was the first President Bush. The place smelled of rusted iron, a sharp oxidation metal scent that made me think of blood when I first arrived. Was that only a year ago? Salt water is hard on anything metal. This is my life now, taking care of Grandpa, and hoping my children would call, but they never do, and sampling the local tequila at Dolly's Pub. It's about a mile from here, and the evening walk always clears my head. Grandpa sat on the porch in an office chair that was thrown out years ago. He held his coffee in two hands, a flask of whiskey near him. "Grandpa, I've told you to cut back," I said. "Doctor says the same thing," he said. "I'm ignoring that bit of wisdom too. See anything interesting on your walk? Or anyone?" "I'm not looking." Grandpa rested his mug on his leg and looked at me. "Paradise is wasted on the lonely." I chuckled, but didn't find it funny. Relationships aren't worth the advertising. "Just saying," he said. I remembered the man at the end of the pier with the shirt that said, "Don't dream it, be it." Inwardly, I smiled. If I did go up to him, he would ask, "Do you have to pay alimony and child support?" And I would say, "My ex-wife asked, but the judge didn't make me when he learned that my wife earned double than me." The man would think me pathetic. The rest of the day, I worked on cleaning up Grandpa's place, then went for a cheap beer that night. I stayed up late, binge-watching NCIS. The next day, I drove to the beach and went for a run. The air around the Four Seasons Resort Lanai smelled like pancakes. Once again, the man stood on the edge of the pier. Same man, but his shirt said, "I'm a rich kid with issues, lots of issues." My feet moved without me telling them to. Straight for the pier, straight for the man on the end of the pier. My heart beat a little faster. My palms began sweating. My smile flickered like a fluorescent light. He had hairy legs, was well-muscled, his cologne something smoky, crisp. His hair had that wind-blown look skiers have. A large can of Coca-Cola sweated in his hand, and some song whispered through his earbuds. I held my breath, forcing courage to surface. A year after the divorce, and I can't believe I'm doing this. I stopped about a yard away, close enough to read his shirt, close enough to see the veins on his forearms. My pulse sounded loud in my ears. "Hi," I croaked. Chapter 3. He glanced back, pulling the white earbud out of his ear. "Did you say something?" "Hi." My mind ran through every line, excuse, opening, joke, conversation starter, anything. "Nice sunrise. Come here often?" I could kick myself for that stupid line. "Second time," he said. "I'm Zach Albright, from Vermont. You?" "Todd Parker. I jog here every morning." I looked down. Sand covered my feet. My clothes were worn, and my shorts had a hole right above the left knee. Homeless chic. What was I doing? I don't have the right to meet people, especially cute ones. My kids hate me. My ex despises me. I have no life. Barely have a job. I'm taking care of my grandpa. His place is a dump. I have no money. Rock bottom? I've reached the last stop on the subway. My new normal. No, I don't have any right to talk to him. Look, I said, this was a mistake. I came out to my wife, Vivian, and my life imploded. I'm sorry, I'll just leave. So, he said, you see a guy on the pier, like what you see, and walk over to talk to him? Because why? You're lonely, my friend. He said it without sarcasm, maybe a hint of a smile, but not a mean smile. 2 seagulls wheeled overhead, flying free. Something like that, I replied. I was going to see if you wanted to get a beer sometime. Stupid, right? I guess I'm not ready. He paused, then grinned. Well, Todd, with rainbow baggage, why don't we let the laundry air out over a cup of coffee and waffles? My hotel has a damn good waffle bar. Everybody knows that waffles fix everything. Zach cracked open the Coke, foam fizzing at the rim. He nudged it toward me with a grin. Liquid courage works better than tequila before breakfast. I took the can and took a long sip. It fizzed, it burned, and something lightened in my chest. Chapter 4. I climbed out of the Jeep at Grandpa's place, whistling a tune I barely remembered. He sat in the old rocker on the porch, squinting at me through the morning glare. Who are you? He asked, voice gravelly. Todd, your grandson. You going senile? I've never seen him smile, he muttered, though the corner of his mouth twitched. I walked closer, shoes crunching on the gravel. I've got a date. Grandpa chuckled, wrapping both hands around his chipped coffee mug. Now that's my boy. Back when I was in high school, there weren't a lot of gay folk. Maybe there were, but nobody said anything. The world stopped when Elton John came out, and nobody knew what to make of Boy George. Don't worry, Grandpa. His name is Zach. He's a nice guy. Grandpa nodded. Miss Mackay stopped by on her way to work. She reminds me of your grandmother, God rest her soul. Did I ever tell you about our honeymoon? I was drafted to Vietnam, and we were married when I got home. We went to Los Angeles about a year later. Your grandmother adored the galleries, said they were like Disneyland for her. She painted, loved watercolors. I never threw them away. We even met some famous people. I smiled. Grandpa always got lost in memories. Miss Mackay? I gently reminded. His eyes focused. Oh, she runs the library. Needs some help with her computer. Heard you know about those kinds of things. She's willing to pay. I frowned. What did you tell her? I said that back in Vegas, you charged $50 an hour. His grin widened, stubble bristling like cactus needles. That's a little high, I said. I bet you she told you she'd think about it right before she left. Nope, Grandpa said. Library's on Fraser Avenue. Take a right. She's expecting you. The words landed heavier than I expected. A date? A job? A chance to prove myself? Small things, but they felt like the start of something bigger. Grandpa's rocker creaked as he leaned back, eyes narrowing as if he saw more than he let on. I glanced at the horizon. The silver morning light caught on the Jeep's hood, sharp as a blade. Fraser Avenue, a library, a woman named Mackay. It sounded ordinary, but my chest tightened. Maybe it was the way Grandpa said, expecting you, like it wasn't just about fixing a computer. I shoved my hands into my pockets, trying to shake off the unease. The date, the job, the smile Grandpa claimed he'd never seen. Threads weaving together. Something was shifting. though I couldn't name it yet. The rocker creaked again. Grandpa opened his mouth and shut it, jaw tightening as if he'd swallowed words. "Don't keep her waiting," he said at last, though his eyes flicked toward the ancient landline phone on the porch table. "You better go earn some money for your date." I felt like a 16-year-old again. "Can I take the Jeep?" Grandpa leaned back and closed his eyes. "Bring back some big wave golden ale and some chips, the sour cream kind." And just like that, the subway car started moving away from the end of the line. Chapter 5. I found the library half full of kids. It wasn't only the public library, but the main school library for middle and high school kids. I pulled up to a pale stone, one-floor building surrounded by lawns and the occasional palm tree. Mine wasn't the only vehicle. It must be story time because a lot of young mothers with preschoolers milled about. I walked inside and to the front desk. A middle-aged woman with broad-brimmed glasses looked up. "I'm looking for Miss Mackay. She needed some help with her computer." "You must be Todd," she said. "Your grandfather said you charge $50 an hour?" I snorted, looking down at my feet. "When I had all my equipment at my shop, I only charged $20 an hour. Grandpa just said some random figure to get me out of the house." Though Miss Mackay was shorter than me, she managed to look down her glasses at me. "I don't care. With the system down, we can't do anything. Worse, we have Mrs. Wilson's third grade class coming in for checkouts." I nodded. "Lead the way." I sat at the main desk, staring at a series of warning signs. 10 minutes of trial and error, my fingers moving faster as the pressure mounted. The circulation program was frozen solid. Was it corrupted? I flushed the cache, restored the program to factory specs while preserving the data, then held my breath as I performed a hard reboot. The fans whirred, the screen flickered, and for a heartbeat, I thought it was gone for good. Then the login screen bloomed back to life. The computer hummed. The first barcode beeped sharp and clean, and the circulation system came back online. The cursor blinked, ready for a passcode. "It's open for business," I said, standing up. Miss Mackay took the seat and logged in. With a smile, she said, "Just in time." A group of third graders came through the doors, loud and chatty. I escaped into the warm sunshine with $50 in my pocket and just a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. I found some shorts without holes and pressed a shirt with Grandpa's old iron. My hair was hopeless in the humidity. No wonder Goku's hair always spiked. "Can't decide if you look like a surfer or a lost tourist," Grandpa said, chewing licorice. "You be all right while I'm gone?" I said. "You're worried about me? Worry about yourself. You smell like something weird." "No cologne," I said. "Think you'll like it?" Grandpa snorted. "Getting romantic? I'll tidy up in case you bring him back here. I wanted to show you your grandmother's paintings. I've kept them wrapped up all these years. She even made one of you. You were just a child then." Dolly's bar smelled of beer and fries. The jukebox crooned Sam Hunt's House Party. It was too cheerful for my nerves. I checked my phone every 15 seconds. 7:03. What if it didn't show? As my ex pointed out, I'm too old, 34, to be considered a catch, too poor to be considered a charity case, and too plain to be considered good-looking. Why take a chance on a stranger? I smiled as the Uber pulled up. Zach stepped out. Black tee with "Follow the White Rabbit," chino shorts, and fisherman sandals. A Fitbit and beaded bracelet glinted on his wrist. "Glad you came," I said. We sat at the bar. I ordered vodka with pineapple juice. He chose a Long Island. We talked, stiffly at first, but As we opened up, it became smooth. He told me about his job as a travel agent. I told him about my fix at the library. Then we spoke about heavier things. His wife had died. His daughter was living with the grandparents. I told him about my divorce, my kids, how my ex took everything. The words came easier with each round. Soccer, laughter, the clink of glasses. When the bill came, our hands reached for it together. Neither one of us shied away from the gentle touch, the momentary connection of smiles, the temptation to hold hands. For a moment, paradise felt possible. I drove him back to the four-seasoned resort Lanai. Grandpa was asleep on the porch when I finally got home. 2 empty beer cans beside him. I carried him to bed, grabbed a beer, and thought about the day. The old landline sat off the hook, silent, as if waiting for a call that never came. Or Grandpa took it off the ringer to keep it from ringing. I stared into the dark and wondered, if Zach had invited me to his room, would I have said yes? Chapter 7. The next morning, I finished my jog on the beach, sand sticking to my shoes, lungs burning in that good way. The tide was low, gulls wheeling overhead, and the air smelled faintly of salt and coffee. Zach sat on the edge of the pier, legs dangling over water, 2 steaming cups beside him. His t-shirt today said, "Stay calm and don't panic," with the smiley face emoji sticking its tongue out. "Morning," he said, holding out one of the cups. "I figured you'd need this after pretending you're an Olympic runner." I laughed, taking the cup. "You a Douglas Adams fan?" "Oops, left my towel back in the room." The coffee was hot, strong, and exactly what I needed. I sat beside him, watching the sunlight scatter across the waves. For a moment, the world felt simple. "Last night was fun," Zach said, biting his lips. "What is there to do around here?" I blew on the coffee to cool it down and took a sip. Slightly sweet, no milk, not my usual, but not bad. "You ever hear of the Garden of the Gods?" "Is that where UFOs land or something?" "It's on the other side of the island," I said, pointing in the general direction. "Never been there, but people say it's like looking at an alien landscape. Reddish, rocky, filled with odd formations that make no sense." "Like a nuclear bomb went off?" "Kind of," I replied. "Hardly anything grows over there. What are you doing this afternoon?" Zach gave me a hardened smile, the kind that carried weight beneath the humor. "Waiting. My daughter is flying in." The words hung between us, heavier than the coffee mugs. For the first time, I saw past the jokes and t-shirts. Zach wasn't just a friend with quirky references. He was a father, tethered to responsibilities I hadn't imagined. The tide lapped against the pier, steady and patient, as if reminding me that every story has currents beneath the surface. "Didn't you mention that she was with her grandparents?" I asked. "There were some issues." Zach paused, holding his cup but not looking at it. "She stole from their neighbor. Nothing valuable, so no cops, just a buck." "How old is she?" 13. "Why would she steal anything, especially a book?" Zach shrugged. "What was the book?" I didn't expect an answer, just making conversation. Zach gave me a quizzical look and finally sipped his coffee. "You ever heard of The Thing About Jellyfish?" Strange title, but she said it made sense to her. I pulled out my phone and looked it up. It was a New York Times bestseller, a young adult novel by Ali Benjamin about a girl who loses her best friend. Zach inhaled, letting it out slowly, his shoulders deflated, his face hollowing as if the words had scraped something raw. A couple of gulls screamed overhead as the cold waves lapped at our feet. I set the phone down, suddenly somber. Then I asked, "How long has it been since your wife died?" Zach was silent, his face reddened, his knuckles whitening around the cup before he turned away. I placed an arm around his shoulders. In a quiet voice, barely louder than the waves, he said, "I keep thinking how hard it was to lose my wife. Sometimes I get so caught up in my pain that I forget that my daughter lost her mother." "What's your daughter's name?" "Mel," he said quickly. "Can you give me a ride to the airport later?" Chapter 8. I had a computer waiting for me when I pulled up to the bungalow. Owner said it overheated and the on switch wobbled so much that the system wouldn't turn on. It wasn't a complicated fix. Something had shaken loose inside, and the electronics were dusty as hell. It only took me 10 minutes to fix the on button, 5 minutes to turn an old vacuum into a blower and blow out the dust, and then the fan whirred good as new. I inhaled the dust and sneezed 15 times in a row. Grandpa laughed, saying, "Guess you lost that fight," and found me an old face mask among the junk. Still, another $50 in the pocket. I checked the time. If it's 10 in the morning Hawaii time, what time is it in Vegas? Noon? 1? I called my ex. "It's me," I said when she answered. My knuckles tightened about the phone. "What do you want?" Not a question, a demand. She barely contained the anger in her voice. I allowed myself a single breath and forced confidence into my voice. "I don't want to fight. I just want to talk to my kids." The silence was angry. Her reply chilled me. "I don't want them talking to a lying creep." I never lied. "You never loved me either." My shoulders felt like a wound-up spring, ready to break at any moment. "Would you let me talk to them, please? The courts say I have that right." I could hear the smug bitterness in her voice. "You have no right. Never contact me again." The line clicked. The call ended. I forced my shoulders to relax, my fingers to uncurl from about my phone, and I endured the beginnings of a migraine. I'd have to find a lawyer just to be able to talk to my kids. That required money. At this rate, I'd have to fix a lot of computers. How many are even on Lanai? At 2, I picked up Zach and we drove to the single runway airport. Mel was 13, had a gray suitcase covered with anime stickers, and wore an oversized gray hoodie with a worn Nike sign on front. She hugged her dad, said, "Sup," to me, and we climbed in. We stopped at Dolly's and had burgers. I gave Zach and Mel my biggest smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you need a pit stop, do it now. If you want water, buy it now. They have no facilities and no stores and no cell service where we're going." "Every place has cell service," Mel said. "You're about to put that to the test," I smiled. The day was still young. I drove the 3 of us to the northwest side of Lanai, to Keahiakawelo, the Garden of the Gods. A 45-minute drive from Lanai City, not because it's very far, but because the road requires a 4x4 to navigate. Twists, turns, it goes up, then goes down, it bumps through potholes and over rocks. "Check it out," Zach pointed to our left. "Are those rocks balancing on each other?" "According to the guide," I answered, "there are several formations like that." "Worst Uber ride ever," Mel said, sulking as she pulled her hoodie tighter. Beats being with the grand folks, though. At least you guys don't talk about your knees every 5 minutes. Red ground with red, orange, and purple rock formations. It looked like something out of Star Trek. It didn't need filters to look decimated. It naturally is like that. The legend says, I said, as we pulled up to our rest stop. 2 priests were trying to keep a sacred fire burning. One on Molokai Island, the other here. The priest here used up everything he could burn, which is why this place looks like the moon, or Mars. Or a nuclear bomb went off, Mel said. She kept angling her phone to find reception. Who won? The priest of Lanai, Zach said, obviously. But look around. Did he really win? It's just a story, Mel complained. This place is boring. It's just a big desert. We took a break and walked about. Zach pulled his daughter aside and spoke to her. I assumed about the book and the stealing. I climbed a formation and looked out to sea. In the distance were 2 other Hawaiian islands, Molokai and Oahu. The air smelled of salt and moisture, though the ground was dry and crumbly. I'd lived in the Mojave most of my life, but I never expected to find any place on Earth as barren as this. It looked like pictures I'd seen of Mars, same reddish colors, same kinds of mysterious rocks. The sun began setting. I pulled out a small propane barbecue and we grilled burgers and marshmallows. The land turned into a crimson and orange paradise that changed colors as the sun grew lower in the horizon. It didn't get completely dark. Oahu glowed lightly in the distance, but the starry sky proved enough to see by. One by one, the stars came out, not by the hundreds, but by the tens of thousands. We laid back, staring into infinity. A shooting star flicked across the sky. We made s'mores. Mel opened up and told us how she hated school, her grandparents, everyone. She just wanted to go away. The stars wheeled above us, revealing the Milky Way. The ugliness of life was hidden, far away, lost in the depths of the shadows. For the first time since the divorce, since I came out, I felt something. The beauty of the infinite made me feel wonder. My hand found Zach's. Under the blessing of the stars, we held hands. Chapter 9. We drove home in the dark, dropping Zach and Mel at the Four Seasons just before midnight, before I returned to the bungalow. Grandpa was still up, sifting through some old boxes. What are you doing? I asked. He looked at me, his eyes glinting in the lamplight. Remembering. These are your grandma's paintings. She never thought she was any good, but she was. I kept every one of them. You need to go to bed, I said, taking one of the watercolors from his hands and placing it in the box. I put Grandpa to bed, his hands still trembling from the weight of memory. The boxes of paintings sat stacked in the corner, waiting for morning. The next day, I jogged through the cool air, the salt tang sharp in my lungs. Zach was already on the trail, waving me down. We ran side by side until the Four Seasons came into view, where Mel was waiting with her hoodie pulled tight. Breakfast was eggs and toast, her phone buzzing constantly. Zach trying to coax her into conversation. Back at the bungalow, a computer sat on the porch with a note taped to the monitor. Please fix. I carried it inside, but before I could even open the case, Grandpa called me over. He was sorting through boxes again, his voice soft. Your grandma never thought she was any good, but I kept every one. I knelt beside him, lifting one watercolor after another. Waves, flowers, a ranch. The paper felt brittle under my fingers, edges curling with age. The faint smell of turpentine and dust hung in the air, sharp and nostalgic. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters, a hollow percussion against the quiet room. Then I found something different. The canvas was heavier, the strokes sharper, the signature in the corner unfamiliar. Diebenkorn. Grandpa squinted at it, then smiled faintly. We met him at a sidewalk exhibit in Oakland, back in '70. Just a young fellow showing his work. Your grandma liked him right away, said the blues reminded her of the ocean on the horizon. So we bought it. First anniversary gift. Cost us $50, maybe. She never thought it was worth much, but I kept it. I slid the painting back into the box, thinking nothing more of it. Just another piece of art tucked among Grandma's memories. That evening, Zach and Mel joined me for dinner. Burgers again, laughter spilling between bites. I mentioned the odd painting offhand. Some California guy, Diebenkorn. Ever heard of him? Lame name. Then Mel froze, her phone halfway to her mouth. She tapped furiously, then gasped. Did you say Diebenkorn, as in Richard Diebenkorn? Yes. The abstract artist from California? Her jaw dropped, hoodie fell back. I leaned forward, not understanding her change of attitude. Cautious, I asked, my grandparents bought a small painting back in the early 1970s to celebrate their anniversary. Is it important? The phone slipped from her hands, clattering against the table. This is total 6-7, she stammered, eyes wide. His paintings are worth serious 6-7. Oh my God, look at what his last painting sold for. A friggin' mint, man, a friggin' goddamn mint. She picked up her phone, turned it around, and showed us. For the first time since she got here, she smiled. The words hung in the air. Zach raised his eyebrows. I felt my pulse quicken, the migraine forgotten. Mel was right. A friggin' goddamn mint. Enough to make the bungalow into a decent place for me and Grandpa. Enough to restart my dreams, my business. Enough to fight for my kids. Enough to prove I wasn't finished yet. Best part, my ex couldn't touch it. But for now, it was just an old, dusty canvas in a dusty box, waiting to be remembered. Mel sat a little taller and gave her dad a very serious look. Dad, he's cute, he's single, he's rich. Marry him right now. Chapter 10. All I did was make a phone call to the University of Honolulu Fine Arts Department. They referred me to the Honolulu Museum of Art on Oahu. I left a message, thought the matter over. The reply came 5 minutes later. Don't clean it, don't touch it, I'll be there this afternoon to verify. I fixed a couple of computers while I waited. Grandpa tidied the place up. Zach waited with us. Mel made her special Hawaiian cookies, melted chocolate with marshmallows, nuts, and coconut, using Grandpa's microwave. Gooey, but good. She said this was more fun than school. At 2:00, a woman drove up in a rented BMW. She'd just gotten off the plane from Honolulu and smelled of jasmine. She carried a large silver briefcase. We showed her the painting. She spent 45 minutes examining it, during which Grandpa polished his glasses and collected old bottles to recycle. Zach sat next to me, watching me clean a computer and install a new power cable. We made small talk about the Garden of the Gods and employment opportunities. When Mel went into the kitchen, I held his hand and whispered, Do you want to do dinner tonight, even if this doesn't work out? He sat a little closer, kissed me, and whispered back, I'm thinking of extending my vacation. Mel came back outside, snuck some cookies, and then wondered if she should make some more. Instead, she called one of her friends on the mainland. For some reason, my ex-wife, Vivian, called. I wouldn't let her ruin the moment, so I let it go to voicemail. We all glanced at the art expert every 5 minutes. At 2:45, she snapped off her gloves, made a few notes, then looked up with a smile. This is authentic. A Richard Diebenkorn, likely a rough draft of his Ocean Park series. The blues, the geometric grid, classic Diebenkorn. Yet it's unknown, unpublished, and priceless. If you're interested, the museum would be honored to make a generous offer and add it to our permanent collection. She took the painting with her. I listened to Vivian's voicemail later. She screamed that my destitution meant that I didn't love my kids. Never mind that she had caused it. She wanted more child support and threatened to sue me. Barely controlling my fury, I replied, I'll send more money when you let me talk to them. Chapter 11. The next morning, Zach joined me for a run on the beach. Mel sat on the pier listening to whatever passes for music for the kids these days. Zach's t-shirt read, Are people born wicked? A pointed witch's hat tilted on it. Whatever cologne he wore, it meshed with the salt spray and sand, smelling very nice. The smell of pancakes and bacon wafted through the air. We were almost back to the pier when Grandpa called, There's people here I don't know. That alarmed me. The city had called his place a dump and even threatened to close it down. Were they finally doing something? I'll be there soon. Zach and Mel came with me. Safety in numbers, Zach said as we climbed into the Jeep. I accidentally whispered, You smell good. He laughed. I don't think Mel heard. The rental BMW was back, but not the art appraiser. Instead, 2 men, one holding a camera, and a woman, adjusting her makeup, stood beside it. When we pulled up, one of the men walked up. We're with the KHON2 News, and we heard about the recent find. Can we talk on camera? For 30 minutes, we told them everything. As they were leaving, the lady said, Check the new news. We did. There we were, on TV, all of us. They had a quick snippet with the art appraiser. Now back in Honolulu. It's an extraordinary find, she said. We'll have it restored and hang it in their honor. How much is it worth? I'm not at liberty to say, but it is in the 8 digits. As soon as we heard that, Mel turned to me. Look, I like you. I know Dad snores and his shoes stink, and he has the worst shirts, but he's been lonely since Mom died. So, will you marry my dad? I promise to be really good and get nothing worse than a B. Maybe a B minus. A B? Zach replied, smiling. I hate English, so a B it is. Besides, I saw you 2 kissing. I chuckled. Grandpa chuckled. She's only doing it for the money. That's so 6'7". And yeah, of course it's about the money. At least I'm honest about it. What if I promise to make my bed every day? And dishes on odd days? I replied, getting into the spirit of the game. And your own laundry? Zach teased. She folded her arms and pretended to pout. The things I do for my dad. Fine, you have a deal, but I get to be the best man. Chapter 12. Zach and I were sitting in Dolly's that night. Mel had fallen asleep back at the hotel. Jet lag. Zach munched a crisp, salty pretzel. I had cheesy nachos and something that pretended to be salsa. The air smelled of pizza and the yeasty scent of beer. A couple of guys whipped through the foosball table, kicking the little ball amidst lots of profanity. The TV was on, some station out of Honolulu playing the late-night news. This just in from our sister station, KHON2. A rags to riches story happened today over in Lanai City. It's gone viral. A rare painting was discovered among old junk, and it is worth millions. Here with the story is... Her voice trailed off as Zach and I smiled at each other. To fame and fortune. Zach clinked his glass to mine. To new friends, I toasted back. I wish you didn't have to leave. Me too, Zach says. Mel likes you. Especially with the money, I teased. He paused, sipping his beer. She doesn't relax around people often. With you, it just happened. You're a good dad. I hope your kids see that. My ex won't let me see them. Because you're gay? Basically. She thinks I faked our love, that our entire relationship was a lie. Was it? I ate another nacho, licking the cheese off my fingers while I thought. I love her. Until she exploded. Now she's bitter and filled with hate. She wants to make me suffer for the betrayal. She wants to get even? Zach said. I said nothing. I wonder, Zach said, pulling out his phone. After a quick search through Google, he held his phone up. His display showed a small preview. Grandpa, me, Mel, and Zach in front of the bungalow. The caption said, Rare painting found in a remote Hawaiian shack. Look at the views, Zach whispered. I took hold of his phone and squinted at the tiny print. 15 million. In less than a day? They made that video this morning. How is this possible? The internet moves in mysterious ways, Zach said, his voice growing faint and mysterious. Within a couple of days, the whole country might have seen it. My ex is going to come unglued when she sees this. And on cue, my phone rang. Caller ID said it was my ex. Ouch, Zach replied. Guess she saw it early. Chapter 13. You've been hiding money from me? My ex yelled through the phone. Temper, temper, I teased. I'm recording this phone call. And I quickly set it to record. I will not consent to it. Then hang up, otherwise you consent. Fine, I will have my lawyers sue you for hiding money. It's not mine, I said. It's Grandpa's, and every lawyer will tell you the same thing. What's that? You can't touch it. But you're a millionaire. Half of what you own is mine. First point, I replied calmly. What I earned after the divorce doesn't matter, and this happened long after it was finalized. Second, she sneered. Grandpa's the millionaire, not me. When inheritance comes, you can't touch that either. But you owe me. I'm current on all child support, and the judge ruled that since you make more than me, I don't owe you anything, not even alimony. I saw that picture, you cozying up to a man. Do you know how humiliated I feel? How could you? And you dare to call yourself a father. Now you're being cruel, I said, trying to stay calm. You destroyed my life, Vivian said. Made me feel ugly. Made me the butt of a million jokes. Do you know what they said behind my back? I'm the wife who failed so bad her husband left her for a man. The guilt resurfaced. I'd realized I was gay years ago, but couldn't talk about it. I'd felt like it was my fault that the marriage ended. My fault for being a poor husband, for not loving my wife the way she wanted to be loved, the way she needed to be loved. But maybe that phrase could be reversed. I came out expecting conversation, expecting acceptance, expecting that she could love me as I needed to be loved. But instead, Vivian had ended it. You could never man up, Vivian said, her tone mocking and venomous. I took a breath and squared my shoulders. You think it's always about you. Get your head out of your armpit and look at reality. You never loved me or respected me the way I needed to be loved and respected. The conversation is over. Future conversations will be through my lawyer." "Is that Daddy?" a tiny voice said in the background. "I want to talk to him, please." "Coward," she screamed. "You will never see your children again." Then her voice cracked, a jagged edge of grief beneath the fury. She ended the call. Chapter 14. Zach met me on the beach, wearing a black t-shirt with the words, "Be excellent to each other." We didn't run this morning, only talked. "Do you think you'll ever come back?" I asked, slipping my arm through his. He tightened his arm about mine. "Mel wants to." "What about you?" Zach paused, letting go of me. He looked out to the ocean. 3 seagulls darted above the waves, seemingly playing tag. "I don't want to go. It's only been 5 days, but it feels like I've come home." His voice trailed off. "I don't have much to offer," I said. He looked at me, the wind ruffling his hair. "Except what I need." I didn't know what to say, so I changed subjects. I called my lawyer back in Vegas, told him my ex wouldn't even let me talk to my kids, and that money was really tight, so I don't know when I could pay him. Do you know what he said? "What?" "Give me an hour." "What does that mean?" My phone rang. "It's been an hour." I answered it. "Todd, we need to talk." The vicious tones of my ex. "Yes," I said neutrally. "You've gone too far," she said, her voice trembling. "Have I?" "My lawyer just called. They're calling an emergency custody meeting in front of the judge tomorrow to reevaluate custody and alimony. She says that I might have to pay you, and I could lose primary custody. Never." "You're using our children against me. That is against the law," I said. "I mentioned that to my lawyer, and he filed the emergency motion. Now, will you let me talk to my kids, or shall I call my lawyer back?" "I hate you." The line went dead. I called my lawyer. Zach and I walked most of the morning, joining Mel for lunch. I drove them to Lanai Airport that afternoon and watched their plane take off. As the plane disappeared into the clouds, I felt the weight of tomorrow pressing in. The judge would decide custody, but one thing was clear. I was still their father, still a man, and still worthy of love. Chapter 15. It was 9 in Lanai and 11 in Vegas. I sat at one of the backup computers in the library, one earbud in, one earbud out. Miss Mackay allowed me to use her office to make the most important Zoom call of my life. On my end, I had a split screen, half showing the judge and witness stand, half showing my wife and her lawyer. In the courtroom, my lawyer had explained, was a large monitor where everyone could see me, plus a smaller screen for the defense. My lawyer sat beside a laptop, a Bluetooth in his ear. If I touched X on the keyboard, only he could hear me, not the whole court. The judge sifted through files and the bailiff handed him one. They nodded and introduced our case. The judge looked up from the file. "Mr. Parker, Mrs. Parker, this court has been asked to review custody and communication rights. I will hear both sides. Mrs. Parker, please go first." Vivian Parker's lawyer rose, voice sharp. "Your Honor, my client has acted only to protect her children. She fears exposure to instability, financial deception, and confusion about Mr. Parker's lifestyle." I leaned toward the microphone. "With respect, that is not true." The judge's eyes hardened. "Mr. Parker, you will have your turn." "Yes, sir." The lawyer pressed on, painting me as a deceptive man with a fortune hidden away, who destroyed his marriage by announcing he was a homosexual. My client is current on child support, despite the fact Mrs. Parker left him destitute. I have copies of the bank statements with me. He has never hidden money. In fact, he doesn't have any thanks to Mrs. Parker's settlement, destroying his business. He is currently working minimum wage jobs and tending to his elderly grandfather. It's what he deserves, Vivian loudly whispered. In addition, even though he fathered 2 children, Mrs. Parker has denied complete access, even by phone or Zoom, using the excuse that she is protecting the children. The judge's gaze shifted to Vivian. Mrs. Parker, is it accurate that you have prevented communication? Her face tightened. Todd has no right. He humiliated me when he abandoned me for a man. I will not let my children be poisoned by his choices. The judge leaned forward. Tell me more, Mrs. Parker. Vivian smiled. I stopped listening. She would spin this so that I would lose. I'd never see my children again. She made me sound like a monster. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Why had I even tried? Maybe I should have stayed in the closet, pretending to be happy, pretending that someone loved me. Every conversation since that day had been a torpedo into my psyche. They say coming out has a cost. I kept paying over and over and over. I'd lost my wife, my family, my children, my business, my home, everything that mattered. Zach took a seat by me and squeezed my hand. I changed my mind, he whispered. I pressed the X key so only my lawyer could hear us. I'm losing everything, again. The hole in my chest took over. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. Miss Mackay peeked in and set a bottle of root beer in front of me. Not everything, Zach whispered. Your grandfather, Mel, even me, we are with you. You have a new family that loves you. My lawyer had heard everything. His face tightened, and his smile became predatory. Your Honor, I'd like to ask Mrs. Parker a couple of clarifying questions, please. Proceed. Mrs. Parker, is it true that you intentionally left your former husband destitute because he confessed something in private? I wouldn't say that, she said. You received the house, took half his business, and watched the other half collapse, and received full custody of the children, and are currently poisoning them against their father? Is that correct? Objection, Vivian's lawyer snapped. My lawyer didn't flinch. Mrs. Parker, isn't your bitterness against your husband harming your children? Objection! The judge's gavel tapped once. Overruled. Answer the question. I'm protecting them from him. No, my lawyer said. You are punishing your husband no matter the cost, even when it hurts your children. You have proven yourself an unfit mother. No more questions. Vivian was about to shout something further, but her lawyer shushed her. The judge's tone hardened. Custody is not a weapon, Mrs. Parker. Children have a right to both parents. Alienation is harmful. This court will not tolerate it. My lawyer touched his earpiece, signaling me to stay calm. The judge continued. Mr. Parker, this court recognizes your rights as a father. Mrs. Parker, a person's sexual orientation does not justify your actions, not to your husband and not to your children. Effective immediately, Mrs. Parker is required to attend psychological evaluation. It is the opinion of this court that she is not acting in the best defense of the children. Mr. Parker, are you able to accept care of the children until we revisit this matter in 6 months? Yes, Your Honor. Vivian jumped to her feet. You can't take my children from me. The judge nodded. The bailiff stood between them. Sit down, Mrs. Parker. The judge continued. Mr. Parker, I'm awarding you temporary primary custody for the next 6 months. As regards alimony and child support, Mrs. Parker will pay $1,500 monthly in child support until the children are 18, and $2,000 a month alimony for 2 years, during which time, Mr. Parker, you will seek stable employment. Child welfare services will be in touch. I exhaled. The library's fluorescent hum suddenly softer. Across the screen, Vivian's eyes burned, but the judge's words had cut through her fury. For the first time in months, I felt the distance shrink. My children's voices were no longer locked away, and though the court still called me Parker, I knew the name Albright. Zach's name was waiting. The name Mel carried. The name that meant future. Our future. Epilogue. I made fudge to celebrate. It's blue and got little gummy fish swimming on it, and I'm calling it Surf's Up, Mel said. Her voice trembled as if she were nervous. She held a flat Tupperware, her hoodie pulled over her hair. We stood just outside the Lanai City Airport as a plane landed. A set of passenger boarding stairs was positioned at the plane's forward door. The engines wound down, and the door opened. One by one, passengers descended into the island air. I searched every face, my chest tight, until 2 small figures appeared at the top of the stairs. My children. They hesitated, clutching the rail, eyes wide at the sight of palm trees and the ocean beyond. Then they saw me. Daddy! The word carried across the tarmac, cutting through months of silence. My knees nearly gave way. I opened my arms, and they ran down the stairs, their voice tumbling over each other. Mel pressed the fudge into my hands. Go on, she whispered, winking. Just remember, I'm still the best man. I knelt as they reached me, their arms wrapping around my neck, their laughter filling the air. The distance was gone. The court's ruling was behind us. The future. Albright's name. Mel's gift. Zach's hand, steady at my back, was here. For the first time, paradise wasn't just a place. It was family. Restored. It was mine. Thank you for joining me, my friends. In case Todd might seem a little familiar, he was a minor character in Speed Date Soulmate that I thought would be fun to give a story to. For more stories, stop by my other channel, Loud and Proud L3Q. Peace, my friends, and I wish you the best holiday season ever. I love you all.